on the screen. I can see the face of Professor Amiya Paricha, Dr. Alok Singh, Professor Uma Chakrabarti, Professor Tapati Chakrabarti, Professor Ranjit Ghosh, Professor Harish Sahu, Professor Kailash Das, Professor Aniruddha Panda, Professor Bundaban Roth, Professor Anup Rai, Shantanu Gupta, and many others that I can see their faces on the screen. I welcome all the senior professors of our country and all the teachers and the students of our country to this evening webinar on philosophy. Friends, the theme of today's webinar is language, literature, and culture. This is a very beautiful topic. Dr. Manisha Chotrai, Assistant Professor of Parala Maharaj Government Engineering College, Odisha, has been invited to our philosophy family to talk on it. I welcome Dr. Chotrai to this webinar. As you know, the three concepts, language, literature, and culture, they are closely related to philosophy. As you know, language has a deep relationship with philosophy. Language is primarily the tool of cognition, the tool of philosophical reflection. So any philosophy is done through language. Again, the core of literature is inner feeling. As you know, it reflects a perspective about the whole world and the place of man in it. And it is philosophy which makes literature life-oriented. And language is refined by philosophy. So you can see how language and literature, they are also closely related to philosophy and philosophizing. As you know, any philosophy is closely related to culture. It is inseparable from culture. Culture is instrumental for any philosophical activity. And today, Dr. Chotrai is with us to clarify all the concepts in her language, and we can see how she is making a very beautiful correlation among them, and how she is drawing the conclusion, the philosophical reflection out of them. Before inviting Dr. Chotrai, it's my pride privilege to speak a few words on her academic journey. Dr. Manisha Chotrai is now working as Assistant Professor, Department of Humanities and Social Science, Parala Maharaja Government Engineering College, Berhampur, Odisha. Let me present a few words on her academic pursuits. Having a brilliant academic career, Dr. Chotrai has made her specialization in American literature with a lot of creativity. Dr. Chotrai has also many specialization, many literary creativity, which have been very popular among the students. Dr. Chotrai got many awards when she stood first class first in MA class. She got Narasingha Naik Memorial Award for standing best among all the students of MA in Brahmapura University. Dr. Chotrai had 10 years of teaching experience in both undergraduate and postgraduate students, postgraduate level in Government Engineering College. And she has shown her excellence in communication English, business communication, soft skills, and many other literatures. To her credits, Dr. Chotray had a publication named Female Identity Redefined, a study of Jane Austen fiction in academic research. Dr. Chotray had also another publication named Feminist Movement in India, an eco-feministic overview after a presentation in national and international conference. Dr. Chotray had been invited to international conference on rethinking environment, literature, ethics, and, and, and praxis. She had also been invited to participate in AICT and Cambridge assessment of English collaboration with the faculty development program, and uh, she's among the best teachers of our country who has attended such program. And today, Dr. Chotray has been invited, agreeing with all our formalities. And today, we welcome Dr. Chotray to our webinar to present on this scheduled topic. And today, I also welcome Dr. Pramod Kumar Das, our admin, our convener of philosophy family. Today, he will present the synopsis of Dr. Chotray after her talk. And Dr. K. Omnan Rao, the co-admin of philosophy family, is with us. Today, he will moderate the interview session after the talk of Dr. Chotray. I welcome Dr. Rao, I welcome Dr. Das, and I also welcome once again, I welcome all the teachers, scholars, and students of philosophy and literature and other subjects who have been connected with us to witness this program. I welcome all of them. And now it's my pride privilege to welcome and invite Dr. Manisha Chotray to commence her speech. Okay, pranam madam. Over to Madam Chotray.
Good evening and a pranam to everyone present in the event. Thank you. Am I audible? Hope I'm audible.
It's audible, madam.
Okay.
Audible.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Maharana. That was in fact a very, very generous introduction of mine. I come from a literature background, but I have been teaching more of language, as said by Mr. Dr. Maharana, in Government Engineering College. And thank you so much. And I would like to thank Rao sir for including me or having me in the family, making me a part of the family. Esteemed members, professors, and intellectuals in the family, it is really a proud privilege to be among all of you. And today I'm going to make an effort to kind of establish a connection between language, literature, and culture from my understanding. And I'm looking forward to a very interactive session. And as I can see, there are experts, there are intellectuals and in fact, very senior professors in the forum. And I would really look forward to their contribution, their inputs on my presentation and on my talk. So I'm really looking forward to a very, very interactive and a very, very rich session. So I think I can start now, Dr. Maharana, with the permission of the coordinator.
Start. Okay, start.
Thank you so much. Okay, so basically language, literature, and culture. Um Language learning is in fact is and in fact has always been a very very enriching process for any learner. But have you ever given a thought to the process of first language learning, second language learning, or any foreign language learning for that matter? Mother tongue acquisition is a very spontaneous process. It happens very naturally. But the journey of a second language learner is not so smooth. So, in the course of discussion, we will make an attempt to understand language in the cultural context and explore the possibilities of adopting literature as a means to reach at the desired proficiency level in the target language. So basically, we are going to look at we are going to establish the connection between language, literature, and culture, and how, if this connection is established, the journey of a second language learner. Here, I'm talking about particularly English. The challenges faced by a second language learner will be lessened and can be overcome, and the journey of a second language learner can be more and more smooth. So, first of all, we will start with language, which is not just a tool of communication, beyond that. So, language as the repository of culture, tradition, and belief system. So, to define language simply as a tool of communication is to highly underrate it. Language is much more and higher an entity. It is the repository of culture, tradition, and belief system of a land and its inhabitants. So, the richer the cultural heritage of a land, the richer its language. It's language that separates us, humans, from rest of the species, from animal like way of communication with roars and grunts to development of a full-fledged language system. Humans have come a long way, and all of these are recorded and expressed in language and literature. So development of language is a key phenomenon in the history of human civilization. The ability to express a range of emotions and feelings with the help of language has proved to be absolutely advantageous for humans. It was always much more than just a tool of communication. The contribution of language towards creation of knowledge, development of civilized society, and formation of social bonds is immense. Being social animals, humans always needed a medium of communication, and language served this purpose. So now coming to the theories relating to origin of language. Language is basically a system of communication that enables the transfer of information. There are around 7,000 living languages in the world, and it is believed that out of all those 7,000, Sumerian is the oldest one, and it is believed it exists since 3500 BC. The famous thinker Rousseau has argued that language originated from emotions, and Immanuel Kant was of the opinion that it originated from rational and logical thought. 20th century philosophers such as Wittgenstein argued philosophy is really the study of language. Noam Chomsky, probably the most influential linguist of the second half of the 20th century, has made a number of claims, in particular about language. So Chomsky claims, the first claim that Chomsky makes is that some language ability or language learning ability is innate. It is quite natural, a part of the language learning ability that we as humans possess is natural, is innate. So some ability to learn a language comes quite natural to us in an effortless manner. Intuitively, humans follow and learn language available to us in our immediate surrounding. So the exposure that we have to a certain kind of language, we have an intuitive ability to quickly adopt that language. The second claim made by Chomsky is a universal grammar exists for all languages. The universal grammar, which according to Chomsky, forms the basis upon which all human languages are built. So children do not simply copy the language that they hear around them. They deduce rules from it, which they can then use to produce sentences that they have never heard before. So they do not learn a repertoire of phrases and sayings, as the behaviorists believe, but grammar that generates an infinite number of new sentences. The third claim made by Chomsky is children are equipped with language acquisition device. So this is not information that the child is taught directly by adults, but information that is given to the child for to decode. The set of language learning tool provided at birth is referred to by Chomsky as the language acquisition device. Next, we will look at development of language skills through literature. So how literature is going to help or how literature helps in development of language skills. So when we say language skill, what do we understand? We mean the four basic skills of any language. So to achieve proficiency in any language, we need to develop LSRW skills. What are these LSRW skills? Listening, speaking, and reading, writing. So these skills should never be taught in isolation, but in an integrated way with literature. Teachers should teach the basic language skills in as an integral part of oral and written language. So it is not merely an aspect of the oral and written production of words, phrases, and sentences. Literature such as poetry, novels, history, in fact, biography, and essays give us pleasure as well as wisdom. At the same time, they help us establish the connection between language, literature, and culture. All the human emotions like anger, sadness, passion, love, hatred can be expressed through literature. Traditionally, the central perspective for sociologists studying literature has been the use of literature as information about society. To a much lesser degree, traditional work has focused on the effect of literature in shaping and creating social action. So, literature in a way mirrors society. Literary texts have been variously described as reflecting the economic, family relationships, climate, landscapes, attitudes, morals, races, social classes, political events, wars, religion, etc. So it is very essential to know the characteristics of the age in which a writer writes. So thus literature is simply a mirror of life or a reproduction and obviously a social document. Literature is a collection of expressions via language. These expressions are communicated through language. So it is focused on the creative writing side of expressions. So language is expressive at its purpose is to express ideas, knowledge, opinions, whereas literature is more and more imaginative. The language skills like listening, speaking, reading, and writing can be improved through literature. The language process like pronunciation, grammar, vocabulary is learned automatically when literature is introduced in a natural process. Otherwise, language learning becomes tough for new learners. So when the skill of like listening and speaking involved in language study of grammar and vocabulary or grammar and vocabulary come in an easy way with the incorporation of listening and speaking. So a child is never taught the grammar of his or her mother tongue separately. So it is easily picked up. The vocabulary, the grammar, the structure, everything is easily or in a spontaneous manner picked up by a child at a very early stage. So literature proves to be powerful resource or literature proves to be very powerful or proves to be a very powerful resource in the classroom when it is given or it gives the cultural enrichment, variety, and personal involvement. So, reading Shakespeare or Shelley or Addison or any writer for that matter, of the present age, maybe a Rushdie or maybe any writer or any poet, definitely helps in development of all the four LSRW skills. Next, we can look at the connection between language and literature. So it is said that language and culture. So it is said that language is culture and culture is language. There is a very close connection between the two. Culture is an integral part of society, a way of life where people share norms together in groups, across groups that constitute culture. So, culture is a complex issue to discuss in itself. In fact, there are several fascinating aspects to discuss about culture and language. It is intriguing to study how culture and language are interdependent. When we make an attempt at second language learning, sometimes culture poses a barrier. So, for second language learners, retaining the skills of first language, learning another language sometimes becomes tough because there is always an overlapping, there is always an interference, which is called as mother tongue interference. So the second language learner always come across or always face challenges as they have to retain the first language, the rules and the grammar and all the knowledge of the first language, and at the same time acquire or adopt a second language. So if culture is separated from the second language, the acquisition becomes all the more difficult. So in isolation, say, a language cannot be learned. It has to be linked to the culture. So learning a language is therefore learning the behavior of a given society and its cultural customs. Language is a product of the thought and behavior of the society. So an individual language speaker's effectiveness in foreign language is directly related to his or her understanding of culture of that language. So the relationship between culture and language has or the relationship between culture and language is as inseparable as the dance and the dancer. You cannot separate the two. You cannot imagine one without the other. So its inseparability offers English language teachers opportunities to familiarize their learners with various cultures, lexical, idiomatic, grammatical, pragmatic properties of different varieties of English language. At the same time, the synchronous existence of culture and language poses pedagogical challenges for teachers of English as as a second or foreign language. The thrust of the discussion is to highlight these challenges, which are compounded when a teacher undertakes the job of teaching English to learners coming from widely heterogeneous cultural backgrounds and societies. So, view against the background of these complexities, learning of a second or foreign language resembles an echo. The resonance or dissonance of the echo will depend on the similarities and differences between mother tongue of the learner and the other tongue he or she is learning. So at the individual level, the learning of the target language is similar to a duet in which the voice of the mother tongue and that of the other tongue frequently sing disharmoniously and only occasionally sing synchronously. So, at the level of culturally heterogeneous classroom, it becomes, or the teacher or the language teacher comes across many challenges because sometimes the language is offered in isolation without the culture, without literature. So, there the uh, learner is not able to adopt or grasp or to understand the feel or the rhythm of a certain language because it is taught or it is presented or it is delivered to the learner in isolation, that is without literature or without language, without literature or without culture. So, teachers teaching English as a second language to linguistically homogeneous groups experience occasional mind shocks due to these issues or these challenges. And teachers teaching English at an institute where we find learners from across the globe speaking diverse languages experience these big and small challenges every moment. So the non-native varieties of any language are called twice-born languages. Now, what is this twice-born language? A language that is transplanted from its native soil to an alien soil is twice-born language. We say that such a language is born again in the sense that it has to carry the weight of a new cultural experience. So, for Indians, we can say that English is a twice-born language. So English is a twice-born language in those countries where it is used as a second or third language. The non-native varieties are characterized by sociolinguistic or pragmatic transfer. So there are two types of transfer, unconscious or unintentional and conscious or intentional. So learners of English as a second or foreign language, for instance, unconsciously transfer the rules of use from their mother tongue. Similarly, they unwittingly impose the rules of the mother tongue on the other tongue. So this is called as mother tongue interference that may happen at the syntactic level, or that usually happens at the pronunciation level. So there is this overlapping or there is this interference that takes place. So characters in Indian English fiction, for example, unconsciously deviate from the norms of native varieties. On the other hand, Indian creative writers writing in English consciously deviate from the norms of the native variety of English. So the non-native users of English exploit its potential in a fashion to suit to their needs. So they take the position of the language and turn it or use it to their advantage. That is what the Nigerian writer Achebe means when he says that I feel that English language will be able to carry the weight of my African experience, but it has to be new English, still in communion with its ancestral home, but altered to suit new African surroundings. So there is some amount of, or there is some amount of impact that the individual leaves on the language based on his or her background, his or her experience, his or her culture. So a work of literature can only be fully grasped by relating it to the total dynamics of social and historical events. Linguistic change is rapid if the culture of the society is dynamic. Thus, it goes without saying that there is an intimate relationship between culture and content of language. For example, in America, compliments are very brief, concise, whereas in Japanese culture, complimenting is a prolonged activity. So these are the differences that we do find between cultures of different lands. So to interact with a language is to do so with the culture, which is its reference point. We could not understand a culture without having direct access to its language because of their intimate connection. A particular language points to the culture of a particular social group. And learning a language, therefore, is not only learning the alphabet, the meaning, the grammar, the grammatical rules, and the arrangement of words or sentences and phrases, but it is also learning behavior of the society and its cultural customs. So thus language teaching always contain some explicit reference to the culture, the whole from which the particular language is extracted. So, this very human communication process is a complex one, as many of our messages are transmitted through paralanguage. This is another aspect of communication, the communication that takes beyond language. Paralanguage is through body language, through expressions, through eye movements, through the tone of our voice. So, paralinguistic features also play a very important role, and they also do differ from one culture to the other culture. So, these auxiliary communication techniques are very, very culture specific. So, communication with people from other societies or ethnic groups is fraught with the danger of misunderstanding if the larger framework of culture is ignored. So, when cross cultural communication takes place, or the communication across culture takes place, which is very, very common. Now, the world is a global village, and cross cultural communication is something that takes place every day, every moment. So, we are connected with the entire world. And when this communication takes place, there are certain challenges that come up, and culture or paralinguistic is one of those challenges. The most obvious form of paralanguage is body language or kinesics, which is the language of gesture, expressions, and postures. However, the meaning of words can also be altered by tone and character of voice. So, this very thing is observed from one language to the other language, from one culture to the other culture, how this body language changes, the gestures, the hand movements, maintaining eye contact is appreciated, or maintaining eye contact is desired while talking in certain cultures. But in certain other cultures, maintaining eye contact with elders is considered inappropriate. So we need to understand, we need to observe and understand the culture of a particular land when we are learning the particular language, or when we are engaged in cross cultural communication. So, two languages are never similar, they never represent the same social reality. The world in which different societies live are distinct, not merely the same, with a different label attached. So, to speak or to assume a culture and to know a culture is, is like knowing a language. So, you need to actually know the culture, understand the culture, if you claim that you know a certain language. Language and culture are homologous mental realities. So, cultural products are representation and interpretations of world that must be communicated in order to be lived. So, it can be said or that language can mark the cultural identity, but it is also used to refer to other phenomena and refer beyond itself, especially when a particular speaker uses it to explain intentions. So we can say that language is a part of culture, and through it we can express cultural beliefs, values, and that the specific usage of a given word are peculiar to a language and its relationship with culture. In fact, language teaching means language and cultural teaching. Culture learning is actually a very key factor in being able to use and master a foreign language. So, for effective international cooperation, knowledge of other countries and their cultures is as important as proficiency in their languages, and such knowledge is dependent on foreign language teaching. So, it is widely acknowledged that a literary text with richness and variety can be very stimulating for language learners and can be used to elicit a very wide range of responses from the learners, which are facilitating for language learning and for language teaching and learning. So it kind of bridges the gap between the cultures and makes them familiar with the norms and behaviors of the people of the target language, the language that we wish to master, or the language in which we try to or we are trying to gain proficiency. So it helps the learner to get familiar with the socio-political backgrounds of the target language, of the target language society, and also makes them understand how communication takes place in a particular community. So this bridge, this gap that a learner comes across between the language, a certain language, and the culture of the land can be very well bridged by or through literature. Literary texts, literary books introduce or make the learner acquainted with the customs of the land, the culture of the land. So when we read a text by a Japanese writer, we get a slice of life, we get acquainted, or we are acquainted with, or we get acquainted with the Japanese way of life, their customs, their traditions. So this is how this broadens the horizon of understanding the common human nature. So not just culture, it also tries to, or it also helps the learner to understand the human nature and how the culture of land differs from one to the other. So language and literature sometimes are very different from each other in the aspects of meaning, existence, nature, concern, and order and method. The purpose of language is to kind of express ideas, opinions, emotions, and knowledge, whereas the purpose of literature is to capture those expressions in language. And language and literature are highly codependent and help in the development of each other. So, language it is everything that is expressed through language is kind of recorded in literature, and through our reading of literature, we come across a lot many things. So it can be concluded that the ESL learner or the learners of second language can be successfully taught English using the techniques of teaching language through literature and in the cultural context. Literary texts are found to be very good resource to facilitate language teaching and learning. The universal issues discussed in literature expand the horizon of knowledge of the students and promote cultural enrichment. Literature fosters empathy, tolerance, and awareness of the global problems. Multiple exercises and activities make the task interesting and cover all four language skills, that is, listening, speaking, and reading and writing. And out of all those four skills, two are, as we know, receptive, like listening and reading are receptive skills, and speaking and writing are skills. So it impacts the whole learning experience. So reading, writing, speaking, listening, it helps you to develop in all four areas, all four skills of a particular language. However, learners' proficiency, interest, and age should be taken into consideration while selecting the text class and the classroom. So we need to establish the connection between language, literature, and culture, and we can begin it. We can begin it, or we can do it by analyzing or by trying to understand or make an analysis of very common experiences and obvious practices of that takes place in our society. So language is like a river. It is joined by tributaries, adding up to the volume and the richness. Every new addition brings richness to it. So a language is never free from influences. Any language that comes in close contact with other language draws something, or the other language leaves an impact on it. And it certainly adds or it suddenly makes the original language or the language rich. We can see that every 5 years this language gets updated. There are some old words which get obsolete and we are getting new additions. Some are borrowed, some are new terms, some new terminologies that we are using. Like some of the words like telegram, postman, typewriter, or maybe in near future, banyan tree, or maybe sparrow. These words will get, or most of them has become kind of obsolete. We do not see their use. Rather, in place of these words, we are getting new and new words. So this is not just words or grammar and phrases. Language has, language receives a lot more. Language becomes, or language gets enriched as it travels with the speaker. When the speaker moves from one land to the other, the speaker carries its own language and makes new additions to it, learns something from the new language, new culture, new experiences. So knowledge is coded and is kind of transacted through language. And as humans, we do not perform any activity, or we cannot simply perform any activity without language. So language is definitely a defining factor for humans, and it kind of gives us the power to express ourselves, to express our emotions, our thoughts, our ideas. So it empowers us. It empowers us through language. We are able to convey, we are able to express, we are able to connect with the whole world. We able to connect with someone sitting in the other part of the globe. So definitely using or learning a new language certainly adds to the certainly adds to the existing language, and it kind of makes our or it kind of makes our whole learning experience much richer one. So this was my attempt to draw or to establish a connection between language, literature, and culture, because I have always seen in my classroom, or I have always observed the learners, my learners, particularly here, I'll be talking about my students, struggling a lot to master, struggling a lot to develop proficiency in English language, and most of the time they are offered the language in isolation, and if even if literature is incorporated, they fail to establish a connection. They miss this link of culture that exists between language and literature. So the struggle is always on for them because they are not able to connect the dots, or they are not able to establish the connection between all the three and then acquire the language as a whole. So in parts they learn. That's why all the time they kind of suffer. They kind of suffer. They kind of suffer from sometimes low self-esteem, because sometimes it is though it is not correct, but sometimes it is connected to educatedness. It is connected to sophistication, and and so many things. So students are mostly, English is introduced to students or is presented before learners as a subject, not as a language. So with a subject approach, they only learn, mug up, by heart things, but they are not able to reproduce anything original. Only when particularly English is presented to them as a language, they'll be able to accept it, they'll be able to understand, they'll be able to establish the connection and understand that the way I have my mother tongue, this is the mother tongue or of another land. The way words, phrases, sentences of my mother tongue are deeply rooted in the culture, in Odia culture. Similarly, words, phrases, idiomatic expressions of a foreign language or of any other language is deeply rooted in their culture. So I cannot understand or I cannot learn a language in isolation. I need to bridge the gap. I need to understand. So this is a problem that mostly the vernacular medium students face, because mostly they come across English as a subject. So with a subject kind of approach, they take up the language. So they are able to write, they are able to read prose, poetry, and everything. They are able to reproduce answers. But when it comes to common day to day communication or conversation, they fail because they are not trained, or they did not have that kind of an exposure to be able to produce something original. So the struggle goes on. So if the students are offered English as a subject, if it is offered to them as a subject, as a language, definitely the response or the results will be much, much better. So this was my short attempt at uh, uh, establishing a connection between language, literature, and culture. And thank you so much. And yes, of course, I would welcome inputs and any questions, if any, from the esteemed participants in the event.
Thanks so much, Madam Dr. Monisha Chutrai, for your nice presentation on the theme language, literature, and culture. And you have tried to make a very beautiful connection among all the three concepts. And at first, you have tried to show how language learning ability is very innate to man, it is very natural to man. And you have also mentioned the Kant's view as to how language uh, is a derivation from the logical thought. And you have also made a connectivity between the language and culture. The language is culture and culture is language. How they are interdependent and how they are inseparable from each other. Being a student of English language and literature, you have somehow focused on the second language learners and their connectivity with the culture and literature. Uh, but this is not my role to explore on um, the synopsis or the summary of the talk. May I request uh, Professor Pramod Kumar Das to present a brief synopsis on the talk of Professor Monisha Chutrai. Hello. Okay. Dr. Rao. Okay. I would like to request Professor Dr. K. Omnan Rao to present a brief synopsis on the talk of Professor Monisha Chutrai.
Thank you very much, sir. Namaskar, everybody. Now, I should really thank the speaker for being so consistent in her approach in finding a parity between language, literature, and culture. She tried to have a sort of synthetic approach to the entire idea of bringing together the language, literature, and culture. Now, during the entire course of our lecture, I could see the three elements of thought, speech, and action being taken into account in the format of the entire format or scheme of language, literature, and culture. Now, she very rightly says that though our speech acts are the reflections, the speech acts take into account the language part, the linguistic part, but our culture is carried on in our thoughts. And these thoughts, our culture, the thoughts which are taken as the part and parcel of our culture, they are reflected through our language. That's how language becomes so important. And even action of a particular being, of a particular land, or anybody in particular, so that also can be translated into language. So language serves as sort of a medium of expressing one's thought and also translating one's act into a sort of language, and and that may constitute a part of literature. So this is how language takes a pivotal role, a sort of central role in preserving one's thoughts and also one's actions. So taking this issue into account, see, tries to bring about, tries to make a distinction between the local language learning and the foreign language learning. And she says, well, the natural language or the mother tongue is something innate and something the child learns with time. But as far as the second language is concerned, certain difficulties are there, because language learning is not just learning the basic elements of language, but the language also involves the cultural aspect that makes the learning and the understanding of the second language become so difficult. Now, having said so, she tried to look into the conceptions of certain thinkers like Rousseau, who says that language emanates from one's emotions, and she also makes a reference to Kant, who takes language, the development of language as a sort of personal and logical consequence. And also she is also concerned about Wittgenstein, who takes language as an important aspect in philosophical reflections and philosophical understanding. Now, very rightly, she has touched the claims made by Chomsky when she said that language learning is something innate, and there exists a universal grammar in nearly all languages. And but the third claim, it's a bit problematic when she says the children are equipped with the language learning, say language acquisition device. But the problem arises whether this device is naturally inbuilt for the acquisition of the mother tongue, or whether this device is also adaptive to the acquisition of the second language or the foreign language. Now, having said this, then she touched into literature, where she said that our literature, whatever literature that we have, that can be understood through language, and she focuses on four basic skills in language, especially she says LSRW, which she means listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Well, I say that to add to her, I say listening and reading are the input devices of language. Listening and reading, they are the input devices, and speaking and writing, they constitute the output devices. So they both constitute a part of our literature, and the literature somehow reflects our society, culture, religion, and every aspect linked with our life. So very nicely, she has tried to bring literature, culture, and language together. And very nicely, she has said that the language reflects one's culture. And having a local language and going on with the local language, one can understand the local culture. There is no problem in understanding that. But the problem arises or certain challenges arises, especially with reference to the foreign language or a new language, because language, as you said, that language is not just learning the elements of language, but also language implies the learning of a particular culture contained in that language. So language is not just the elements of the language, it also has in its content the culture, the tradition, and the belief system pertaining to that very language. That's how a new language learner finds it really difficult to cope up with certain challenges, especially with relation to the tradition and the cultural patterns of new language that the language tries to communicate. So it becomes a challenge, especially for teachers who teach foreign language to the local people, because of difference in cultures. So she said, well, sometimes the teacher has to teach a language, keeping the culture aside for some time, so that once the student gets acquainted with the basics of the language, then she can think of linking that language with culture, and that's how one can make the entire communication of new language and the culture linked with that language more connected. Otherwise, the students may not understand, because a foreign language reflects a different culture. So she talks of the local writers in foreign language who take the local, the indigenous culture to their advantage, and they try to write in the foreign language, especially the efforts made by, say, R.K. Narayan or, say, Manoj Das. They are the examples of how they use a foreign language to reflect their own culture. So that is how it has to be cultured by all of us, especially while understanding and learning a new language, and also bringing in our culture, putting our culture into that format. But at the same time, the original writings in a foreign language should also be taken while understanding the foreign culture also. So the learning of a foreign culture involves the cultural pattern, the belief system within, which needs to be understood seriously. So in order to make that understanding of a foreign language complete, otherwise we would be partial, because the language would be reflecting saying something of a different cultural aspect, but we are interpreting in the local culture, then that becomes difficult, especially with relation to the non-communicability of the foreign author. So that's how language becomes difficult. So we have to make a steps inward to a foreign language by, first of all, understanding the elements of the language, and then slowly understanding the foreign culture, the culture in which the culture that the foreign writing wants to reflect. So then we can understand the thought that the author, the foreign author, an author in the foreign language tries to communicate. It is only then the understanding becomes complete. Otherwise, it will be a partial effort. And it is really a challenge for the teachers to communicate along with the language, the culture of that foreign land. So then she talks about the paralanguage also, a communication beyond the language that may include one's body movement, the eye movement, the voice, the tone that he or she uses. So especially that becomes a challenge in relation to the cross-cultural communication, because because two people may be speaking the same thing, but the paralanguage contains the emotion part, the feeling part, the sentiment part, which also needs to be understood in order that the understanding of the language becomes a complete one. That's why how the paralanguage also plays an important role in understanding some foreign language. So, and one more thing, important thing she said, it's not that language reflects a culture, but also how one uses his language also reflects his own individual culture, how he lives, what sort of life that he lives, that particular individual lives. That also reflects not only the general trait of a culture, but also the culture of that individual. Now, very nicely she has said towards the last, language is like a river with many open tributaries, trying to have influences from other cultures, so that not only that the language becomes enriched, but due to the influence by the other cultures, so it also helps in connecting people all around. We are no more a closed system. In the new world, we are all open to different cultures, and how this is how language should flow as a river with open tributaries, asking for more and more cultures to come into the fold, so that the language will no more be a barrier for people in different cultures. So that's how it was the last, that's how she says we need to bridge a gap between the different cultures, and it's how the understanding of a foreign language becomes more easy. Now, towards the last, I would like to say one thing, that what one speaks reflects the science of living in that culture. What one speaks reflects the science of living of that culture, but how one speaks reflects the art of living in that culture. And hopefully this lecture would help us to develop our art of living in a better world, in a humanistic world, so that in spite of the cultural differences, we should understand we are human beings and extend all sort of support, cooperation, and understanding of each other's cultures and make the human society grow globally, connecting people across sections without having much differences. Thanks a lot, madam, for your nice lecture. Really thankful to you, madam. Thank you very much. Now over to Professor Kailas Mahana, sir, for carrying on the further proceedings. Dr. Mahana, are you there?
Hello.
Yes,
Hello.
sir.
Thanks, Dr. Rao, for presenting an excellent synopsis on the topic. Hello.
Yes.
Okay, thanks so much, Dr. Rao, for presenting an excellent synopsis on the talk of Dr. Monisha Chotrai. With this, you have also presented your observation and the reflection of your deep understanding of the whole lecture. Now, may I request you to carry on moderating the interactive session. Hello.
Okay, sir. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for giving me one more opportunity. Thank you very much. Now, we have learned professors with us. Especially, I would like to call our Ranjit Ghosh sir to have some observations and comments on this issue. Professor Ghosh, over to Dr. Ghosh for his observations on this talk, or he has any specific suggestions on this. Over to Dr. Ghosh. Sir,
Thank you, Dr. Rao. But I see the speaker missing. Let her come and join. Hello, Dr. Chotrai, are you there?
Manisha Chatra is well, she is not there. Let her come. Let us wait for a few moments. Minutes.
Okay.
Please stay connected, sirs. Please stay, let her join. Please.
No, I have no problem, but I think she is totally disconnected.
I'm calling her. Sir.
Okay.
She is joining. She has some connectivity issues. She is joining soon.
Okay.
Please be with us, please, sir. Well, she has some network issues and she is connecting over phone, so she will be soon be there with us. She will be soon be there with us. Please, please be there, sir.
Shall I start?
Sir, wait for a minute.
Okay. Let her join.
Let her join. Let her join. If she doesn't, then we can have a discussion among ourselves over this issue.
We
But
can
let
have
us
a
wait for half
discussion
minute.
amongst ourselves.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But let us wait for half a minute.
Okay, no problem.
Yes, sir. I request the participants not to leave. Let us wait for her because we had a very good talk by her, and it would add value if we learn from each other on this issue. Well, Manisha Chotra, she has joined. Well, sir, Manisha madam is back. Now you can carry on with your observation, Dr. Ghosh.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Chotrai. I thank you on behalf of the philosophy family for your nice deliberation. So I have one problem on Chomsky, and another one regarding this homogenized language structure. So first come to Chomsky. Until yesterday, I was also in a doubt that when Chomsky says that mind is genetically pre-programmed in the acquisition of language, does he actually refer to the mother tongue or the first language or second language? Now, in his universal grammar, he is trying to accommodate all these type of situations, first, second, third, etc., etc. But yesterday, I got a reply for myself through television that you must be knowing that the Chinese were hesitant just prior to the globalization, onset of globalization, regarding the English language. But what happened? They then found that unless they try to acquire this language, they cannot rule over others. And yesterday I got the statistics that now in China, English-speaking people are more than the US the people itself using English language. So in that case, we can get the answer about this universal grammar of Chomsky is probably right. But normally what happens, this needs a lot of perseverance, because unless the people who want to just acquire another language, what you have mentioned about the mother tongue interference. Okay, so am I audible to you, Dr. Chotrai? Hello.
Dr. Chotrai, is the voice reaching you? Madam Manisha Chotrai?
Am I audible to you, madam? Doesn't have to be.
Well, she's there. Dr.
Okay,
Chotrai,
okay.
are you there?
She's there. She's seen, but whether she's listening to me, I'm in doubt because of the connectivity problem. So she's having a problem. Okay, Dr. Rao.
Sir, she's having a connectivity problem.
She's having a connectivity problem. So
she has joined. Anyway, she has joined now. She has joined now. Well, she might have noted your points.
Okay, this is one thing, and then
Manisha madam, is Dr. Ghosh? Are you able to hear to Dr. Ghosh? Dr. Manisha. Are you able to hear Dr. Ghosh?
Probably not. She is not getting the connectivity.
Yes, Dr. Manisha. Nice observations are being made by Dr. Ghosh, but well, she is there now. Yes, Manisha madam, are you able to listen to Professor Ghosh?
I'm so
Ye-
sorry.
Am I audible? Am I audible?
Speak. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Sir.
So this
I
is the
think the
situation.
yes, sir.
Yeah, this is regarding
Sir.
Chomsky. I got the answer, and you, whether you also subscribe to the same, you please tell me. This is one thing, that this
Sir.
universal grammar, this requires a lot of perseverance, and yeah, which normally doesn't happen in our Indian situation. People are very our students are very much hesitant unless we teach them in Odia the difficult the subject matters. They are not ready to get it to their heart. This is one thing. And but you see the perseverance of the Chinese, and now English speaking Chinese are more than the people of US together. So we just
English
cannot
speakers
say
also.
that this culture specificity alone is responsible. This type of Chomsky was right, that mind is genetically pre-programmed, that in the acquisition of any language. But he said just language. He never said any language. Then it would have been better for us to understand that. This is one thing. And the second is this, that this multiplicity of culture with plurality of norms. This is actually creating a situation by which we can ask a question, that is a homogenized language competence is possible? Because you are in the communication side, you are in the language, literature, you are doing all these things. Is a homogenized language competence possible? This is one thing. And the third one I would like to refer, that this verbal and non-verbal language, this differs, because this non-verbal way of expressing is definitely culture specific. That means the way the Japanese show their respect, it will be different from ours, and similarly what we say, it will be different from any European culture. So how would you respond to this? Mostly to this question, that whether a homogenized language competence is possible. Thank you. That's all.
Sir, can little elaborate? You mean what exactly? I don't get it. If you just elaborate.
Dr. Manisha,
The
it would be
fact
nice
of
if you move to a slightly move to a place where the network is full and prominent. At least you can move outside. That would be better, I think, because inside the network is not coming properly. Your voice is breaking. Hopefully that would do. Yes, madam. Huh. Yes. Carry on, madam. Carry on.
Sir, am I audible now?
You are audible now. You are audible now.
Am I audible now?
Yes, madam. You are audible now. You are audible.
Okay. Yes, sir. Sir, absolutely, the observations made or the claims made by Chomsky, the first one, that the existence of a universal grammar is applicable to all languages. If an ODI child is raised in Japan or raised in any other part of the world, then naturally he or she would pick up that language, not necessarily the mother tongue. So as you rightly said, the mind is programmed into acquisition of a language. So whatever language that the child at early stage finds in his or her surroundings. So what language is available? So intuitively or very very spontaneous adopt it. Hello? Yes, sir. And yes, the argument of the Chinese in acquisition of this language learning is really something that can be appreciated. But again, we need to, kind of research in what manner again it is presented to them, and the methodologies or the techniques of learning involved. And we need to get into that. And of course, English is not a foreign language for us Indians because we have a close or a long association with English. We were 2 years, so it was there in our. Yet, comes to acquiring language proficiency, Indians do face difficulty. So that needs to be, and again, a lot of research needs to be done. If we particularly compare achievement of the Chinese, and if we take our statistics and kind of make a comparative study.
Hello. No. What I want to ask you that homogenized language competence. This is possible in case of take the computer language. That is homogenized and that is same for all, one and all. But when it is coming to the verbal way of expressing things, whether this type of homogenized language the competence can be available in with all. This is what is my question. What do you feel on it?
Okay, sir. Definitely. When we are saying or when we are talking about language competencies, no one speaks one language. The thing is, we do speak many languages, more than one languages. So we are not really monolingual. We do speak many languages, and there is always impact of one language on the other language. So we do carry these influences wherever we go. And as far as English is concerned, or as far as learning is concerned, this cultural aspect, I think, plays a very, very important role, because when we are making an attempt to even learn a language of just the neighboring state, if we are well acquainted with the culture of the land, and we are well acquainted with the cultural practices, the tradition of the land, then definitely our journey or our experience will be a much easier or a much smoother one. Thank you, sir. Any other input if you would like to add to my presentation? It would be really nice of you. Thank you for making.
Hello.
Hello.
One thing that you see when there is a multiplicity of culture and with a plurality of norms, then how this homogenization is possible? Suppose in case of US, the multiplicity of culture is there and the plurality of norms are there. So how then homogenized language is possible?
Called a melting pot of all, as it is a multiple, a melting pot of all cultures. Definitely. So there is an assimilation that we see if we talk about particularly US. It is open. It is really open, and as I told, as I was discussing, like a river or tributaries. So particularly in US, the culture is very welcoming. So all the influences it takes or it carries forward. So that is the unique thing, US culture, which may not be found in the UK. So this assimilation is at all levels, and definitely at language level. It's really remarkable if we talk, as you said, as you gave the example of the USA, the United States.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So from the response from Dr. Chutrai, more or less would imply that what Professor Bose was trying to know, well, a sort of homogeneity cannot be seen in different languages because of the different cultures that they reflect, because there is a conflict of interest, the content differs, the structure differs, the belief patterns differ, and the behavioral patterns to change. And Dr. Ghosh was more highlighting on the non-verbal part of one's actions. Okay, that non-verbal part, and that that reflects more on one's culture. Well, this is what is the observation made by Professor Ghosh, and that's why he has a problem in establishing homogeneity vis-a-vis different cultures. But with the response of Dr. Chutrai, one thing we can see that there are certain cultures which are very much accommodative, which aim at a sort of assimilation of different cultures. So a prone culture where, say, in the United States, as you said, it is trying to bring in more and more cultures to the format. So there is a sort of adjustment with time, but well, that adjustment may, with time, may lead to a sort of homogeneity, but truly speaking, in a strict sense, different cultures cannot be taken in a homogeneous sense, because there are certain differences, because the language is not language in itself. It is deeply connected with its culture, with its patterns, with beliefs, and all many things. So, well, we can reach it, think of a homogeneity, we can bring in more and more cultures to our format, but speaking as such, speaking strictly of languages as such, we cannot think of such homogeneity, which Professor Ghosh is trying to assess. Thank you very much, madam, for your response. Now we have the questions by Professor Harisau, sir. If he wants to directly speak to the speaker, he is welcome. Otherwise, I will read out the question to the speaker. Dr. Harisau. Dr. Harisau. Well, Kailash sir wants to make a comment. Kailash Das, sir. Yes. If you want to make a comment.
Professor Rao.
Sir, namaskar, sir. Carry on.
Namaskar. I must congratulate Madam, Manisha Madam, for a very nice presentation. She has dealt with this, as I see, that is three concepts. There is language, again literature and culture. And all these three concepts are very, very difficult, in the sense that it is very difficult to define what is language. It is very difficult to define what is literature. It is also equally difficult to define culture. A lot of controversies are there. Anyway, madam, you have beautifully made your point. But I will simply just say that we are using language to create literature. Right? So, language is not only for literary, language has many more functions. It is just not communication, as you said. I fully agree with you. And it has helped us creating great literature. Again, the native writers of the language are not always have created great literature. For example, the Indian English writing, the African English writing, these writers are there. Though they don't belong to that culture, but they have created a great piece of literature. So that doesn't mean that I'm saying that culture neutral language is quite easy. It's not very easy. And again, as a student of philosophy, I will say that a language creates literature. Literature reflects society and culture, and more than that, also literature does. It does not merely reflect, it also gives an ethical, moral philosophy to the society. It also does a job of teaching through literature. So Again, literature is a philosophy put into images. When it is very difficult to teach philosophy, it is by means of literature that we can give an idea to a common man, the ethical through a protagonist. A writer is having a philosophy of his own. He's having a philosophy of life, philosophy of existence, philosophy of that is precisely a moral philosophy of his own, and he wants to communicate. Technical philosophy doesn't reach to such people. So here, literature through images is a great philosophy. It is a philosophy. Literature is a philosophy through images. It reaches its audiences. So that's why literature does many roles here. It is a very important role. But my point here is that if great literature is being created by outsiders, those who are not the natives of those users of language, mother tongue, that they're not their mother tongue, but they have created great literature, and they have also reflected a culture that is very native to them, but in another language, very beautiful, that has been done successfully. So your religious, your linguistic identity and your cultural identity can be distinguished. May not be, sometimes it is separable. Our language is a part of our culture also, but it can be easily distinguished. So that's what I say, that as I am referring to Professor Ghosh's point, that the Chinese people are now studying English. To my mind, when we were students in our class 5, 6, we are taught English literature, English through literature. Some stories were written. So actually the purpose of an Indian boy or a Chinese boy reading English is what? Not to know their literature or to their culture. The Chinese are definitely not studying English to know the literature and culture of Americans or Britishers. They are studying English to communicate to a bigger world. Either their purpose may be to dominate over the world or something, whatever they like. Also, Indian students are studying literature not to know the culture of Britons or Americans or the any foreign language we are reading. That is only for communication purpose to people, those who are the vast world around us. That's what our purpose is. So I have these sketchy ideas after listening to you very carefully, but you have dealt with all these things very nicely and beautifully. I will thank you once again for presenting a very nice topic, but the topic is very difficult topic, as I know. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir, for your valuable comments. Yes, sir, I do agree with you. There cannot be one definition of language, literature, or whether culture. They're really, really vast. And I do agree with you, with your comments.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Koladar sir and Manisha Chatrai. Actually, one thing I see from Professor Koladar sir's comment is he tries to see foreign language as something, learning of a foreign language as something different from culture. He wants to take away the culture part and keep it aside, and tries to make a point that the language can be learned not with reference to a particular culture and in total abstaining from that culture. One can think of learning a language. He has rightly pointed that Japanese they do not want to learn the English culture or the American culture. The point in learning English is to have a better communicability to the clients in the international market. That is the sole reason for understanding language, English language. So they don't want to understand the culture of the British culture or the American culture. The point that Koladar sir wants to make is a valid point, especially with reference to the Japanese people and their understanding of they logic on the learning of English language. Okay, thanks very much. Thank you very much, sir, for this nice observation. We have very eminent people here. If they have any question in their mind, they can directly speak to the speaker. Well, we have Harish Rao, sir. He wanted to say something. Well, sir,
hello.
Welcome, sir.
Hello. Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible, sir. You're audible.
Yes. I have only one observation, that literature is a broad canvas in which culture and comment. I want to know. Literature is a broad canvas in which both culture and language are reflected. What is the comment of Mrs. Chotrai?
Over to Dr. Chhatrai. Literature is a broad canvas
Sir,
that reflects both language and culture.
sir, of course, but literature depends on language. In order to express thought, emotions, or as a tradition, culture, whatever it is, we do depend on language. So language is primary. So language is primary, and in the course of time, culture of a land was established and it is recorded. Gradually, got recorded in literature. So definitely, language. Without language, you cannot imagine literature. And there is this link of culture. And by understanding the culture of a foreign language, I don't just mean their way of life and everything. In order to understand an idiomatic expressions, like I can give an example in Oriya, like "Ghorari ki kumbhira" or "Challi na jani batro doso." So these only a Odia person who is aware of what role a Dhinki plays in Odia household, can understand. But any other learner, any other learner who is trying to learn Odia without trying to understand the importance of a particular, particular Dhinki or something like that, something that is unique, some words, some tools which are unique to a particular culture, he or she cannot understand. So in order to have a proper understanding or proper knowledge or proficiency in a certain language, we need to know the culture, or we have to establish the connection between the idiomatic expression, the words, the phrases, the sentences, the intonation, everything. We need to connect it to the culture. And again, sir, I would like to, as Professor Kailash sir has said, language learning is in fact an individual experience. It differs from me. It may differ from my experience to yours, because we are, again, as individuals, we are conditioned in different ways. When I say a place of worship, being a Hindu, I visualize a temple. But the same word place of worship for a person who belongs to Islam or someone who belongs to Christianity will have a different imagination. They would definitely visualize a church or a mosque. So language learning experience differs from person to person. That is why sir gave examples of African writers or any writers from Indian origin who are doing excellent job or producing masterpieces in English. Their language experience or their language learning experience has been definitely different from a common language learner in our surrounding. So language learning experience definitely differs from person to person. So we cannot kind of generalize my experience or cannot generalize the whole language learning experience as one. So hope
Thank
I
you.
have made my point.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Monisha madam. It's a nice presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much, sir.
We have a question by Shravani Mishra madam. Her question is answered during the course of the discussion. I'm not taking that because it is directly or indirectly answered. But we have senior professors with us, Professor Amya Paricha, Professor Vrindavan Rath, Dr. Alok Singh, or any other. If they want to make some observation, they are welcome. Let us wait for half a minute. If they have some observation to make, they can unmute and they can give their suggestion or observation, because we are all learners and we are learning from each other. So it's a platform to learn, and we welcome suggestions from all fronts, and that is how our learning process somehow or the other will nearly attain a sort of completeness within. So this is the main objective of this platform, to learn from each other. So we have people with us, senior professors. If they want to say something, If they want to share their experiences or observations, they are free. They can unmute and post their observations. I'll wait for half a minute, then we can move to the next part. Well, I don't see anybody, but anyway, we should thank all of them for having with us, connected with us. Now over to Professor Mahana for the final close down. Over to Professor Kailash Mahana, sir.
Very good session, Dr. Rao, and you have nicely moderated the session, and we all have enjoyed the question and answer session, which Dr. Chotre. We also enjoyed the questions and the observations made by Professor Ranjit Ghosh, Professor Kailash Das, and Professor Harish. We all enjoyed, and over to Dr. Rao for proposing a vote of thanks. Hello.
Okay, sir.
Actually, hello, Professor Rao.
Yes, sir.
Observation by Pramod Das, sir.
You call him. If you want to make something. Observation.
Okay, Pramod sir. Okay, Pramod sir. Have you any observation? Please take your observation and concluding remarks.
I am simply speechless. I enjoyed the talk of Madam and the interactions and the comments of all learned professors. I really enjoyed. I am speechless. I am grateful to all of you. Thank you.
Okay, Professor Rao. Please propose a hearty vote of thanks in favor of Dr. Chopra and the other participants.
Thank you very much, sir. At first, I would like to thank the speaker, Dr. Manisha Chatrai, for her brilliant talk on a very difficult issue. As Dr. Kailash Das sir has said, it is a really difficult task in the sense, because till now we are having a great civilization, but still it has become really difficult to, in a generalized sense, how to define culture, how to define language, and how to define literature. It's a difficult issue, but anyway, you have tried to bring all the three together onto a common platform and try to see the relation between them, and very nicely you have done your job with great synchronity without say much disturbance to basic concepts. Well, I should thank you and also thank Professor Ranjit Ghosh sir for bringing into issue various concepts, especially from the ideas contained in the philosophy of Chomsky, especially talking of the universal grammar and the homogeneity in language structure, which carried a lot of interaction among the learned scholars, and it was a great learning from you, sir. And also thank Harish Sahu sir for his observations on the issue, and also thank Sravani madam for sharing her experiences, and also she made a comment towards the last. Now just I could see in the chat box where she says that culture is something more than the language and literature, but still it is culture. Maybe culture is something more than that, but the culture has to be expressed in language. That's how culture also has to come within the format of language, other the culture becomes inexpressible. Sometimes you have to take the non-verbal part in our culture, which Professor Ghosh was highlighting on, because we simply cannot confine ourselves to the verbal part of language. We should also take into account the para-language that Professor Manisha Chatrai was talking about. It is only when the language plus the para-language together are taken into account, then language as both in its linguistic and paralinguistic shapes can give a proper reflection of our culture, of our tradition, of our behavioral patterns. So this is how this interaction, this lecture was all about. It was a great learning for all of us. I should thank the speakers, I should thank the commentators, I should thank the question raisers for having very good responses on this issue. So I should thank all of them for being connected with us. So I should thank even our admin, Professor Pramod Kumar Das, who is the man behind inviting Dr. Chatrai to this platform. So I should thank him also, because it is his effort, through his effort, that these webinars are being conducted. so regularly, and nearly 11 months are completed. We are going to celebrate our annual day on the 28th of July. We have new contributors, new people to our family like Amiya Paricha sir, who is from the Department of Political Science, but still he is with us. He is always encouraging us. So we have very good people with us. So we have a new participant today in the form of Dr. Alok Singh. So I should also thank him. Sir, be connected with us. Please be with us. Please bless us so that we can carry on our activities in a good shape and we can reach to more and more people. Our idea is just simple. We want to learn from each other. That's the whole idea behind the birth of Philosophy Family, because we are all learners. Our learning is a process with no end in hand, with no end in with no end. It is how it is. We may die, but the learning should go on. So this is the idea behind this Philosophy Family. Thank you all for making this webinar so successful. And at the last, I would like to thank the coordinator of today's webinar, Professor Kailash Chandra Maharna, for introducing the speaker and taking all the pains for making other things possible. So overall, I should thank all the participants, including Dr. Ghosh, Dr. Kailash Das sir, Dr. Alok Singh, Dr. Amiya Paricha, Dr. Vrindavan Das sir, and many others, Bhagwati Jaina and many others whom I personally may not be knowing, who are there and who are connected with us. I should thank everybody with these words. Over to Dr. Maharana for the final close. Thank you very much for being connected with us and for gracing this occasion and making this event very successful. Thank you very much. Over to Dr. Maharana for the final close.
Hearty gratitude to Dr. Rao, Dr. Chhatray, and over to Professor Pramod Kumar Das for the closure of the meeting.
Kailash sir wants to say something. Kailash Das sir wants to say something. Let him speak.
I just like to thank you, Pramod Babu, Rao Babu, and Maharana Babu. That's all. Thank you all for steering it. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.